Hello everyone, myself Sivakrishna. In this video, I am going to explain about data table activities like build a data table, add data column, add data row, clear data table activities in UiPath Studio. So let's get started. Basically, data table we will be calling as a temporary database to maintain the rows and columns. In the UiPath Studio, to create the data table, we can use the activity called build a data table. So I have taken the build a data table activity. So here in the output data table, I am going to create a variable dt. Basically, using the build a data table activity, we can create the data table with columns and rows, or we can create the data table only with columns, or we can create the data table without columns and rows. So let me show you these three options how we can create the data table. To configure the data table, we need to click on data table. So here we can have an option to add the columns, add the rows, and edit the columns information. Basically, to add the column, we can click on the plus icon, then we can add the column details. So if you want to modify the existing column, then we can edit and then we can change the column details. So here I am going to change the column 1 to name and then click on OK. For the second column, I am going to change to salary. I will talk about these options later in the video. So for now, click OK. I am going to add the row information as Hari. One. Okay. Now let's see the data table variable details in the watch panel. So the data table got created. We have a name, salary, and these are the details. A column count is 2, row count is 2, right? Let's see how we can create the data table with only columns. So I am removing the rows information. Click on save and check the data table variable in the watch panel. So we have only 2 columns are available and row count is 0. And let's see how we can create only data table without columns and rows. Click on OK and let's run and check the variable in the watch panel. So here we have a column count is 0 and row count is 0, right? So if you ask, is there any other way to create the data table without using the build data table? Answer would be yes. We can create the data table without using the build data table as well. So for that I am going to take one assign activity. I am passing the variable here and then I am going to mention the expression as new data table. So this way we can create the data table. So let me run and check the variable in the watch panel. So the data table got created and column count is 0, row count is 0. So basically we can copy the one table information to another table as well. So here I have created dt1 with 2 columns and 2 rows, and I have created another data table dt2 which is empty. So let me show you how we can copy the dt1 structure or the column information to the dt2. For that I am going to take one assign activity. So dt2 the dt1 dot clone. So basically the clone will take the structure of the data table, then it will assign to the dt2. So let me run the process and show you these variable details in the watch panel. So if you see here, we have a DT1 having two columns, name and salary, and in the DT2 we have two columns. So the structure got copied. In the same way, we can copy the entire table information to the another table as well. For that, we are going to mention only the variable name, then it will copy the columns and the rows information as well. So if you see here in the DT1 we have name, salary, and these are the details, and if you open the DT2 we will have a same information. Let's talk about the properties are available at the time of creating the data column. We have properties like allow null. So basically it will allow the empty values to this column. Auto increment, basically to set this we need to change the data type to integer, then only we can enable this option. Default value, basically for all the rows if you want to set same value then we can enable this option. Unique option, so basically if you want to set for all the rows the column name should be unique, then we can enable this option. Max length, if you want to set any limit to the data table like the row limit, if you want to set you can set the value here, or else you can mention the -1, then we can mention a number of rows information. So let me show you this option one by one. I have enabled allow null. Then it will not give any error, right? Let me delete a unique value. So I enabled it, and then I'm going to mention the values as Pawan, value 10,000. Then I'm going to mention the same name again. So when I click on OK, we will get an exception, right? So I'm disabling this, and I'm going to set the default value to Uma. Then as soon as I click on salary, the name will be automatically populated, right? Auto increment, so when I enable this option, so the salary details will be automatically increment with 1. So here I'm mention the Uma, then I'm setting the initial value as 10,000, then it will increment automatically, right? Add data column, so basically if you want to add new column to the data table we can use the add data column. So let me take this add data column. So in the data table section we need to pass the data table variable name. So here we have two options to add the columns name. So if you have a data column object or variable, then we can pass it in the column section, or if you can mention the column name in the column name section. So here I am going to pass the column name as address. Let's run the process and check the DT variable in the watch panel. So here name, salary, address got added, right? Add data row, so basically if you want to add dynamic row information we can use the add data row. So here I am taking the add data row. So in the data table section we need to pass the data table variable name. So if you have already data row or variable we can pass it in the data row section, or else we can mention the all the columns information in the array form. So here we have two columns in the existing data table, name and salary. So here I am passing the name as Kiran and the salary is 34,000. So basically here salary type is of integer, but here we need to pass the array in the string format. So that's the reason I have mentioned the salary in the string format, right? So let me click on save and check the variable details in the watch panel, right? So but while adding the data row, if you want to mention the same data type information, so that also we can do. For that we need to mention one expression object, and then in this salary we can directly mention the 34,000, right? So these details are added. Clear data table. Basically, if you want to remove all the rows information, we can use the clear data table activity. So here we have two rows information available, right? So here I am using the clear data table, so it will remove the rows information but not the structure, like the column information, it won't be deleted. So here the column count is 2 and row count is 0, right? So without using the clear data table, we can do this activity by using the clone property as well. So let me show you that option. So we have data in the dt1. In the dt1 I'm just taking the clone property, so it will capture only the table structure. So let's run and check. Same result we are getting, right? If you want to remove the table columns information as well, then we can create an object. So the column count is 0 and the row count is 0, right? So this way we can work with build data table, add data column, add data row, clear data table activities in UiPath Studio. Hope this video is helpful. Thanks for watching this video. Have a nice day.